Hi everyone, Austin here, and yep, 2025 is over, 2026 has just begun. I'm clean shaven, I'm getting the goatee back, and I got myself an Indiana Jones style fedora. Guess that's what happens when me and Ace decide to take a little excursion off to Disneyland. And this year has certainly been a bit of a... Well, 2025 was a year of well, there was some great things happening, but a lot of times it was a lot of Ace wanting to do this to me. Yeah. Let's just say that this year was kind of rough. Which ranges from family drama to a death in the family and some other things that I don't want to go too much in depth with, but let's just say that the horse has kicked Ace in the back of the head, just as it's probably kicked me in the back of the head, in the case of Ace, sometimes willingly. Anyway, that's not important right now. The important thing is, well, let's take a look back at 2025 in terms of the movie reviews that were constructed, because, well, we did a lot. We did some pretty good ones, too. Especially since this year marked the first instance of me covering a film that I actually don't like. So, yeah. So without further ado, let's take a look back at 2025 in review. Something easy and from the 1960s was my thoughts with this one. The 30 Dozen was the first to be covered from that decade. Right here on this show, so that all of you can see that I actually do cover films that aren't strictly limited to Gen X to, how old is that Finn Wolfhard kid again? This was certainly a departure from last year, as I chose to not cover a TV series. And really, after you do a review for Ed, Edd and Eddy for its 25th anniversary, it's hard to follow that up with something that large scale. Although there are certainly options. Plus, we did do a lot of large scale reviews in terms of their films reviewed, especially the summer event we did. This had plenty of interesting things to talk about, like how Jim Brown quit his football career to pursue a career as an actor, as well as how a lot of the film was shot in England at places like the Ashridge House and MGM British Studios. And I took great pleasure in talking about a film starring Lee Marvin and Charles Bronson, so it definitely was fun. But really for me, I think the highlight was talking about the rhyme used for the film and joking about that. So, how about I just show you that?
Showtime.
2. The guards are through.
You're dumping me?
3. The Major's men are on a spree. 4. Major Waterslot go through the door.
Hello, Jerry. May I come in?
5. Tinkley stays in the drive.
Here he comes.
6. The Major gives the rope a fix.
It's a snake. What do you want me to call it? Say rope. What? Say grab the rope. Grab the rope.
7. Waterslot goes the hook to heaven.
No stairway. Denied.
8. Mayonnaise has got a date.
She'll be all right. Have a date. Come on. Come on. Marion.
Hey, what's this?
It's a date. You eat them.
9. The other guys go up the line.
Hey, Bokeh, I thought you were going up.
10. Sawyer and Gilpin are in the band.
Who do you think you are? I'm a pig. Oink, oink, oink.
11. Posey guards points 5 and 7.
And you've had your 6.
12.
Waterslaw and the Major go down to Dell.
It's dark.
13. 13. Frank goes up without being seen. 14. 0 hour. And mayonnaise cuts the cable. Franco cuts the phone.
And I just cut the cheese.
15. Franco goes in where the others have been.
You know, in the bathroom. Somebody's gonna have to keep an in the bathroom count.
16. We all come out like it's Halloween.
Shut up!
So yeah, that was a good one. Maybe not as memorable, but for our first review for the year, it worked. And I got to talk about a film from the 1960s, so I'm not complaining. This one, though, is definitely one of the more memorable reviews of the year. This was a review I was looking forward to, largely because it was a review I wanted to do, as really, once you've done the first two, you might as well cover the rest, which as you will see is a trend throughout this year, especially in regards to another review that came out this year, and made both mine and Ace's Thanksgivings rather painful, but that's not until later. It was fun revisiting Batman Forever, getting to talk about my experiences with it and with Batman in general, especially in regards to the late 2000s, early 2010s, when my Batman hype was at a fever pitch, as well as having a very rich production history from how Tim Burton was told to back off from doing another film, Joel Schumacher's alternate cut of the film, which as of right now remains unreleased. It was great just being able to see it again after a decade, and while it may not hold a candle to Batman Returns, it's still fun to watch in every regard. It's also a rather bittersweet review looking back, especially after Val Kilmer's death on, of all days to die on, April Fool's Day was the day he passed on, which just sounds like a joke from the Joker, and boy is it an unfunny stinker of a joke. Val Kilmer was truly something, and while Top Gun usually generates this response,
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
he was truly a great actor, whether it be in True Romance, Real Genius, Heat, Willow, and The Prince of Egypt. He was truly one of a kind, and he will be missed. So pour one out for him. Unfortunately, this is also where I tell you about Ace's descent into madness, because this has been going on for a while now, and it hasn't stopped. And it's about a lot of shame, guilt, and an overall depression that's been affecting the work process, and has been dragging down morale over here. I was gonna have a more in-depth sort of deal going on here, but I will say this. Never stand behind a horse, because you're gonna get kicked. And in the case of Ace, well, the horse kicked him so hard he hasn't really been the same since. So yeah, there's that. I'll let you decide what that means, because I don't want anyone to put Ace on any blacklist or anything like that. But yeah, overall it was good reviewing Batman Forever. And considering another review that I've done this year, it's probably the best Batman review that I probably put out in terms of actually liking it. What's this? A James Bond movie? And an unofficial one at that? How is this possible? The answer? Anything is possible on this show. Even James Bond movies produced without Eon Productions, Dan Jack United Artists, or any of the other owners of the James Bond film franchise at the time. Long before Amazon got their grubby little mitts on it. This I had a blast creating. The production history, my history of James Bond, my thoughts on Never Say Never Again as a whole, and the headache that was Kevin McClory's ownership of Thunderball, Spectre, and Ernst Stavro Blofeld, and how all of that wasn't resolved until 2013, all of it just came together in a way that only I can put it together. And the result is a review that may just be the first James Bond film I cover on this show, because something tells me I should do more someday. Whether or not that happens is unclear, but one thing's for sure. Any time is a good time to talk about Bond. So of course, this review is awesome for that reason. In 1977, George Lucas directed Star Wars, helping to shape the landscape of science fiction and filmmaking in ways that nobody had seen nor were expecting at that time. But just a year prior, an example of the dystopian future era of science fiction was brought onto the world. That film was Logan's Run. That's right, before we got opening crawls, lightsabers, space battles, and Darth Vader, we got trippy, psychedelic imagery, Farrah Fawcett for some small scenes, Peter Ustinov playing an American, a Jerry Goldsmith score, same year as The Omen, and Basil Exposition leading the whole film. And all of this was just 1 year before we got the start of one of the most successful franchises ever made. It was a good one to do, as there was plenty of information to work off of. The opportunity to talk about a science fiction film in the 1970s that was in a pre-Star Wars world was very welcome. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith doing the score? That stuff is awesome. Plus, it's now hitting 50. Same goes for Assault on Precinct 13, Taxi Driver, Nintendo Capri Sun, Johnny Young Bosch, and Reese Witherspoon. Yeah, those three ain't exactly spring chickens anymore. Anyway, Logan's Run was fun to work on, and the image that Ace has been using this whole review is evidence of just how good it was. Now, here's an event I had planned for quite a while, and to think it all came from a throwaway line from my review for Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. But then again, a lot of throwaway lines usually amount to an actual review. Case in point, we cracked jokes about review ideas in a review for Gladiator, and guess what? Some of those came true. Anyway, the Summer Matrix, also known as Matrix Summer, was an event where my goal was to cover the first 3 Matrix films, discussing each one and talking about the influence of each film, mostly the first, as well as certain production details and the parallels between the Wachowskis and Michael Cimino, as neither were able to capture the impact of the previous works, whether it be the Wachowskis trying to succeed the Matrix trilogy, or Cimino's success with The Deer Hunter and how Heaven's Gate derailed his career. It had lots of great stuff in here, ranging from the ending stinger having Neo say his name, with later reviews replacing it with clips from Back to the Future and the Monster Squad respectively, with Reloaded and Revolutions, and overall allowing me to talk about some classics of science fiction and action cinema. It also allowed me to talk about my favorite thing to analyze in films, philosophy, and believe me, The Matrix has no shortage of it, while Reloaded has less and Revolutions has diddly frickin' squat, thus disappointing me at the end, because with the first film's themes of choice and reality sticking with me in between the slow motion fight scenes and shootouts. This was also where Ace hired 2 assistant editors to take over while he went off to Lappyland down in New Hampshire. I would have liked to have gone with him, but he chose not to bring me, and would have been nice if I was aware of this beforehand. but at the same time, it did allow for some things that Ace would edit out to slip through the cracks. Although he might get more strict with the assistant editors after that, but given that they did do an amazing job, I'm sure they'll be hired again in case Ace runs off for another vacation. Overall, the Summer Matrix was awesome, and I'm glad I got to do this event. This was a suggestion by a friend of mine, one I ultimately ended up going through with because, well, hey, why not? It's 15 years old now, at the time anyway. I'll give it a watch, give my take on it. Besides, I need to fill out my films from the 2010s reviewed quota for the time being. It needs more to fill out. I was genuinely surprised at how much I actually enjoyed the film, as I never watched it when it came out back in 2010. I had no interest in it, and really Toy Story 3 was coming out that year, so my attention was elsewhere. If you're crying out loud, it's the same year as Inception, and boy is that a mind-bender of a film. But I did have a good time with the film. It's not my favorite film or anything, but I got some entertainment value out of it, and with its production details and my friend lending me his manga to allow for pictures related to deleted scenes from the film, it made for interesting subject matter to discuss. As for its sequel, that's unimportant and I'm not in any hurry to review it, so don't expect it to be covered anytime soon. But you can expect films of this decade being covered, like this one. And people say I don't watch films from this decade or the last. This Halloween, we decided to go somewhat modern and review a film that came out 3 years ago at that time, and was getting a sequel around there as well, so overall it was the perfect idea. It also helps that Ace and I went down to Universal Studios Hollywood and Disneyland around that time as well, so it made sense that I cover this considering Universal's involvement with the Black Phone. I really enjoyed talking about the film. I really did find a lot of production facts, and it also gave me one of my favorite gags, which is basically at one point one character is being dragged away, I just dub in Goofy's scream. It's also rather bittersweet considering the death of James Rensoni, who played Max in the film and reprised it for the sequel, so pour one out for him, because trust me, it ain't gonna get any easier. It's so far the only film from this decade I've covered on the show, but trust me, we come up with all sorts of ideas on this show, so we could very well be seeing other films from this decade covered, whether it be The Batman or even Sinners. You never know what will be on the show, and that's the fun of it, as you should expect by now, because if I did the same thing over and over again, it would get boring. And I hate boring, and you do too. Unfortunately, because it is Halloween, it also meant there was plenty of trick-or-treating that was quite plentiful, and sadly I got the worst trick of all, which would become the next review. Ace, could we play something happier so that Val Kilmer smiling can show up?
Hey, everybody! We're all gonna get laid!
Okay, thank you. And now for the disaster. Well, here it is, folks. I teased it long enough, I brought it up long enough, I said I would do it, and guess what? I did it. I reviewed Batman and Robin. I didn't want to do it. I shouldn't have done it. I would have been better off carving a sculpture of Francis McDormand out of oak wood and Martin Short's earwax. But I did. And guess what? It sucked. It really, really sucked. And you can tell because it was the first review in a while that went ungleed because it's a fucking disgrace. And a shitty fucking film that used harder profanity than normal. Because with a film this bad, bleeping the swears doesn't fucking cut it. So much so I'm leaving this uncensored as an example. Yeah, it was that bad. And while the swears were movie clips and contextual quotes from George Clooney and Tim Burton, it was worth leaving uncensored because it was a piece of shit. In fact, Ace is probably having a wild time with this and my usage of the dirty stuff. So with that being said, what else is there about the review that stands out besides almost citing the 7 words you can't say on television? Well, it did have an interesting production history, but that just goes without saying because of course it'd be more interesting than the film, and my history with this film and Batman, because at one point I liked this film, before eventually waking up from my nostalgic haze and seeing this film for what it really was. An awful film that had nothing that made the previous films enjoyable and made me sad being a huge Batman fan growing up. And seeing it again was like that moment when you sober up from your high. You've just made a mess and you got a problem. You heard it in the tone of my voice. You saw in the final product. Really the only thing that didn't happen was me going full angry video game nerd with shouting and screaming. It was just painful to watch. Thankfully, because it was the last film I had to do, it did free up the possibility for other Batman films, ranging from the 1966 film, the Dark Knight trilogy, The Batman, Batman Mask of Phantasm, etc. Meaning it did free up that, along with the potential for other superhero franchises. Unfortunately, it may have also opened the possibility for other reviews of bad films, or just films I don't like. Because while I had given mixed reviews to films like Escape from LA and The Matrix Revolutions, Batman and Robin was the first instance of a negative review. And now there are other ideas for reviews of films I would call terrible. One of which, should I review it, would look less like a review and more like an exorcism, complete with 2 priests exclaiming, "The power of Christ compels you!" So yeah, this one was a shit show. But it did provide me with plenty of entertaining moments, and it is a funny one in my opinion. Thankfully, the next one was a lot more tolerable. To wrap up the year and spread some holiday cheer, while adding a dark edge to the experience, we figured, why not celebrate both Christmas and Halloween, again, with the seminal classic for both holidays, that being The Nightmare Before Christmas. A true landmark in stop-motion animation, it felt good reviewing something that combined both holidays seamlessly, and after doing Batman and Robin, it was a nice palate cleanser after sitting through that painful 2-hour toy commercial that made me lament my existence on Earth.
I'm going to blow chunks.
It was fun talking about the film, as it had an interesting production history dating back to Tim Burton's childhood, the involvement of the late Joe Ranft prior to his work at Pixar, and even who was supposed to be the narrator / Santa Claus, meaning there was a lot to work off of. It also helped that once again, me and Asa ran off to Universal Studios Hollywood and Disneyland because over at Disneyland in Disney's California Adventure during Halloween, they had Nightmare Before Christmas themed merchandise for sale, and in Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion had a makeover related to the film, something noted in the review during the Aftermath segment. Overall, it was just a great pick, and it was nice talking about the film and just seeing why it's still great even now. And once again, it's also bittersweet because of the death of Catherine O'Hara. Yeah, this whole video has just been bittersweet looking back because of a lot of great people dying. They were all featured in films I reviewed this year, but that's just how it goes, unfortunately. However, if I can say one thing though, the best way to remember them is to see the stuff they excelled in, and why it's important to remember them. Pour a drink for those who died last year and month, because it won't get any easier. But remembering them keeps them alive without ever shaking a stick. But yeah, this is a great review, and the best way to close out the year like this. And that is 2025 in reviews. Needless to say, good stuff and a lot of Ace just being very anal about certain things. It's not getting any easier as of right now, and as of the time recording this, things are still rough. But I'm sure in due time things will be sorted out. At least I hope so. And so, with that, I will catch you later. I'll see you whatever review I do next.